about who I would be. I was 13 years old, and being 13, having that type of exposure, yeah, it was cool to go to Howard Homecoming with Puff. It was great to be able to go to Club USA or the Supper Club, with Puffy in that time, or the Tunnel. But these are places that a 13-year-old probably should not be.
Go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody.
That's not what I was there for. I was there because I wanted a career, man. So we would fight, we would tussle. More than often, I think Puffy would say, man, you gotta chill. Like, you just a little bit too intense. You gotta relax. Like, yo, man, I'm here to work, man. I ain't sang in a week.
You think fame is all private jets, sold-out arenas, and red carpets? Think again. Behind the glitz and glamour of the music industry, there's a darker story. One that's been whispered about for years, but rarely told out loud. Until now. Justin Bieber, one of the biggest pop stars of our time, is breaking his silence. And he's not just talking about his experiences, he's talking about what he witnessed firsthand as a young boy coming up in the industry. He's opening up about time spent around Diddy, back when Justin was still a wide-eyed kid with a dream, soaking in everything happening around him, even the things no one was supposed to see. In this raw, emotional reveal, Justin drops a bombshell. It wasn't just him being manipulated, controlled, or mistreated. He saw it happen to someone he looked up to, someone who helped launch his career. That someone was Usher. According to Bieber, what happened in the studio was far from normal. Day in and day out, he says, Usher was pushed to the brink, emotionally, mentally, and artistically, under the tight grip of industry titans like Diddy and Clive Davis. The pressure, the control, the alleged emotional and verbal it was all part of the environment they were forced to survive in. Justin's tone isn't bitter. It's real. You can hear the weight in his words, the years he spent carrying these memories, unsure whether to speak up or stay silent like so many others have. But now, he's had enough. The truth is coming out. And what he's revealing about Diddy, Clive Davis, and the way young talent like Usher was treated behind studio doors is shocking, maybe even career-ending for some. This isn't just another celebrity headline. This is the beginning of a reckoning. And Justin Bieber is finally telling the truth he's held in for way too long. Buckle up, because once you hear what he saw, you'll never look at the music industry the same way again. As Sean Diddy Combs sits behind bars in a Brooklyn detention facility, facing serious federal charges including and transportation to engage in the world is watching and digging. The disgraced producer and rapper, now 56, is in the middle of a high-profile trial that's forcing the industry to confront a disturbing legacy. In the wake of his arrest, social media sleuths and longtime fans alike are revisiting old interviews, behind-the-scenes footage, and once-overlooked conversations. And what they're finding is chilling. Many of these clips, some dating back decades, suggest that the red flags were always there, hidden in plain sight for anyone who dared to look closer. One of the most unsettling threads in this story, the connection to R and B star Usher. Usher, who rose to fame under the mentorship of industry titans like Diddy and Clive Davis, is now being viewed through a completely different lens. Interviews that once seemed quirky or odd now come across as coded cries for help. Old studio footage, jokes made in passing, and even awkward moments between Diddy and his young protege are being re-examined, and they're not aging well. As these disturbing dots begin to connect, people are starting to question how much of Usher's early career was built on pressure, coercion, or worse. And with Justin Bieber now coming forward with claims that he witnessed the firsthand, it's becoming harder and harder to ignore the pattern. What once looked like mentorship now looks like manipulation. What used to be written off as industry eccentricity is now being exposed as something far more sinister. The story of Diddy's fall from grace isn't just about him. It's about everyone who got caught in the crossfire. And Usher, it seems, may have been one of the earliest and most overlooked victims. When Usher, now 45, was just a 13-year-old kid chasing stardom, he entered a world few teens or even adults are prepared for. Under the guidance of Sean Diddy Combs, who became his legal guardian while producing Usher's self-titled debut album in 1994, the young singer found himself plunged into the deep end of the entertainment industry. But it wasn't just about music.
Most kids are trying to figure out, how to be around, hot girls, pretty girls. I'm around grown women, and I'm seeing them do things and have experiences that I'm not quite ready for. And I think that he was just trying to show me the lifestyle. However, that's not what I was there for. I was there because I wanted a career, man. So we would fight, we would tussle. More than often, I think Puffy would say, man, you gotta chill. Like, you just a little bit too intense. You gotta relax. Like, yo, man, I'm here to work, man. I ain't sang in a week. I'm 13 years old, like banging on this man as though, I am the manager. I am the spokesperson for Usher.
Usher has long hinted that his early years around Diddy were anything but typical. In various interviews over the years, he's made remarks that seemed innocuous at the time, almost like wild stories from a fast-paced youth. But in light of Diddy's current legal battles and the disturbing charges he faces, those old comments are suddenly raising red flags. In a 2004 Rolling Stone interview during the Confessions era, arguably the height of Usher's career, the singer dropped a bombshell few paid enough attention to. He admitted that Diddy had exposed him to a totally different set of HRS specifically. Usher painted a vivid and unsettling picture of life inside Diddy's world, saying, "is so hot in the industry, man." And recalling that at Diddy's home, there was always girls around. You'd open a door and see somebody doing it, or several people in a room having an You never knew what was going to happen. At the time, many brushed it off as the wild tales of a now seasoned artist looking back on his outrageous youth. But with the lens now focused on Diddy's alleged history of coercion and those statements read more like early warning signs, an admission from a child thrust into an adult world far too soon. The fact that a 13-year-old was placed in that kind of environment, and that those experiences were once shared casually in a national publication, only underscores how normalized this behavior had become in certain circles of the industry. It also forces a painful question. How many others were exposed to the same kind of environment and never spoke up? When Usher was first signed to Layface Records as a young teen, everyone saw he was destined for greatness. But behind the scenes, the label made a decision that would deeply shape his early career and his life. Instead of simply guiding him through the usual artist development process, Usher was placed under the mentorship of one of the most powerful, influential figures in the music industry at the time, Sean Diddy Combs. At just 14 years old, Usher didn't just work with Diddy. He moved to New York to live with him. That meant full immersion into Diddy's world, a fast-paced environment unlike anything most teenagers could imagine. Diddy even gave this experience a name: Flavor Camp. On the surface, Flavor Camp might sound like a creative retreat or an intense training ground for rising stars. But Usher has since described it as an intense and overwhelming environment, one that exposed him to situations no young teen should have to face. He has spoken candidly about how, while he was there to learn and grow as an artist, he was also witnessing things far beyond what was appropriate for someone his age.
I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle,
right?
And I saw it, and it was, but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at.
Usher has reflected on those times with a mix of curiosity and discomfort, recognizing now how much he was exposed to situations that went well beyond the typical mentoring experience. Being in an adult world as a teenager, constantly surrounded by powerful industry figures and their lifestyles, created a challenging atmosphere for someone still growing up. Looking back, what once seemed like wild stories from his youth now carry a much heavier significance, especially in light of the recent allegations against Diddy. These revelations have cast new light on Usher's early career, suggesting that the environment he was thrown into wasn't just about building a star. It was a complex mix of influence, power, and control. It's clear that Usher's experience at Flavor Camp wasn't just about the music. It was about navigating a high-pressure world where the boundaries between business and personal life often blurred, and where a young artist had to learn fast how to survive. While Usher went on to become one of the biggest names in R&B, the impact of those formative years in such a charged environment is something that resonates deeply and raises important questions about what young artists face behind the scenes in the music industry. According to Usher himself, the things he witnessed while living with Diddy were so wild and unsettling that as a dad now, he would never let his own son go through the same experience. Usher has been pretty clear about that. He calls it Puffy Camp, and he's made it known he wouldn't send his kid there for anything.
14 years old. You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
Think about it. A 14-year-old living in an environment where things are far from normal. And it's not just Usher talking. Others who were around back then have shared stories that paint an equally troubling picture. For instance, Ed Lover, a well-known personality, once recalled seeing Usher at a club, drinking straight from a bottle while in the company of Diddy. And remember, Usher was just 14 or 15 at the time. That raises a lot of questions about what else might have been going on behind closed doors, where no one else was watching. The speculation only deepens when you consider moments like Usher's Essence magazine cover story. During that interview, while discussing his music and acting career plans, he grew noticeably reserved when the conversation turned to his time living with Diddy. Usher admitted he wanted to save some of that for my book one day, hinting that there's more to the story than he's willing to say publicly, yet he also dropped a chilling line. There was a lot of That kind of admission, especially coming from someone as polished and careful as Usher, is hard to ignore. And given the current climate, it makes you wonder how much more is hidden beneath the surface. Fans and insiders alike can't help but feel concerned for Usher, because historically, things haven't ended well for those who've dared to write books or speak openly about their experiences with Diddy. With all this in mind, it's clear that Usher's early years under Diddy's wing were complicated and fraught with challenges no young artist should face. And as he's hinted, there's likely a lot more coming, whether in a memoir or through other means, that could shed even more light on what really went down during those formative years. With Diddy's trial bringing new scrutiny to everything and everyone connected to him, Usher's past experiences are no longer just anecdotes from his rise to fame. They may be key pieces in a much darker puzzle.
My brother right here from day one, we used to wake up and, pause, but like that's how, back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes.
Now that Diddy's trial is officially underway, the layers are peeling back fast. And what's being exposed is darker, more twisted, and more disturbing than most could have imagined. The things coming out now? Let's just say it's getting real freaky in the Diddy camp. Remember when Cassie filed that explosive lawsuit in 2023? At the time, it shook the industry, but many were hesitant to believe just how far things allegedly went. Now, her claims are starting to line up perfectly with mounting evidence and testimonies. In her lawsuit, Cassie alleged that Diddy forced her to engage in acts with male workers while he watched, something that was described as part of a recurring event known among his inner circle as the freak-offs. And here's the kicker. Cassie wasn't alone.
They had to be for both of them. They was in the room. Right?
You're right.
It's a freak-off section. Right? She said it's a freak-off section. If she says a freak-off section, brother, she ain't the only one freaking off. The ain't the only one freaking off.
These freak-offs weren't one-time affairs. They were an organized, long-running part of Diddy's private world. According to Cassie, they involved elaborate planning, costumes, masquerade masks, and lingerie. They didn't just happen in the privacy of a single home. These alleged events spanned luxury hotels across the U.S. and were also hosted at Diddy's various residences. They weren't spontaneous. They were ritualistic, and Diddy reportedly recorded everything. One chilling detail? Cassie said Diddy insisted she wear white nail polish during these encounters. allegedly to create a visual contrast between her nails and the dark skin of the black men he hired for her to sleep with. It wasn't just exploitation. It was deeply disturbing, racially charged control. And now it seems her story wasn't the only one. According to Cassie's lawsuit, she was often forced to participate in Diddy's so-called freak-offs with male workers. She admitted to deleting some of the explicit videos from her own phone, but Diddy allegedly told her not to worry because he still had copies. That chilling detail suggests just how much control he claimed to have, not just over her body, but over her privacy, her choices, and her digital footprint. He wasn't just orchestrating these events, he was archiving them. Cue Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, who's been screaming about this for years. Most people brushed him off, called him bitter, unstable, or just another conspiracy theorist. But now, folks are starting to realize Gene wasn't crazy. He was right. Nearly everything he warned about is now surfacing in lawsuits, interviews, and sworn testimony. Gene has been vocal about the so-called freak-offs long before Cassie's legal team ever put pen to paper. He described the same scenes, people in costumes, high-profile locations, cameras everywhere, and Diddy orchestrating it all like some deranged director. It's not just gossip anymore, it's evidence, it's corroboration, it's a disturbing mosaic of control, coercion, and alleged exploitation that's been hiding behind celebrity status and industry power for years. And with every new day in court, more receipts drop, and the freaky truth about Diddy's empire is becoming impossible to deny. Rumors about Diddy being on the DL, down low, have circulated in the industry for years. Whispers from former insiders, anonymous stories, and even public run-ins have hinted at a private life that looks very different from his public persona. Several people have even claimed first-hand experiences with him. Accounts that were once laughed off or silenced are now being taken more seriously in light of the mounting legal pressure. Now, with Cassie's claims and Gene Deal's long-standing allegations starting to align, the conversation is shifting. This isn't just about power, it's about secrets, deep, dark, and possibly criminal ones that Diddy allegedly fought to keep buried for decades. The more these stories come out, the more it seems that Cassie was only one piece of a much larger, much more disturbing picture. And with the trial underway, the freak-offs, the recordings, the coercion, and the long-whispered rumors about Diddy's private exploits are no longer just tabloid fodder. They're potential evidence. It's not just Justin Bieber who's come forward with stories about what went down behind the scenes with Diddy. Others have spoken out about the troubling experiences Usher faced as well. One of the most striking voices in this conversation is Suge Knight, the former record executive and convicted felon who co-founded Death Row Records. In a prison call interview with Michael Franzese that was uploaded to YouTube on November 12th, Suge made some serious claims about Diddy's relationship with Usher. He said, "Worst part about it is, everybody said what was done to Usher and they have done it to Justin Bieber." Then he dropped a bombshell, alleging that Usher once spent the night sharing the same bed with Diddy, something that adds another unsettling layer to what people are saying about the mogul's behavior. Suge didn't stop there. He also shared that when he first met Usher, Diddy's associates warned him to keep his distance from the young singer. According to Suge, these associates hinted that Combs had a thing for Usher, suggesting there was more to their relationship than just mentorship or business. These allegations from someone as notorious and well-connected as Suge Knight add weight to the growing number of voices raising questions about Diddy's conduct. Whether you take Suge's claims at face value or with a grain of salt, they contribute to a wider narrative that points to a pattern of troubling behavior involving some of the biggest names in the music industry. With these stories coming from multiple sources, famous artists like Justin Bieber, insiders like Usher, and industry figures like Suge Knight, the spotlight on Diddy's past keeps getting brighter. And as the legal battles continue to unfold, the hope is that the truth finally comes out, no matter how uncomfortable it may be for those involved. During the podcast episode, Suge Knight didn't hold back. He criticized both Usher and Snoop Dogg for staying silent amid the storm of allegations against Diddy. Knight expressed disappointment that neither artist publicly addressed the claims or showed support as the legal battles unfolded. He recalled reaching out to Usher early in the singer's career, seeing him as a young black man who was making good music and deserved better. But according to Suge, things didn't go as he hoped. "Dude rolled his eyes at me," Knight said, describing the moment. Then, someone warned him. "You know, don't have one of your guys do nothing to him, Usher. He, a good young man, and even Puffy got a thing." This statement adds another layer to the complicated and tense dynamics surrounding Usher's relationship with Diddy. It suggests there were warnings not to get too close or interfere, implying that Diddy's influence and control ran deep, even over those closest to Usher. Suge's remarks highlight the difficult position many artists find themselves in, caught between loyalty, fear, and the desire to protect themselves in an industry where power can be both a shield and a weapon. Suge Knight didn't hold back when he recalled a chilling conversation that made him suspect the relationship between Usher and Diddy was far more than just mentorship or friendship. It allegedly went deeper. When Knight sought clarification about the nature of their connection, the response he got hinted that Usher and Diddy were, in fact, boyfriends. The crazy thing about it is, like, his mother and everybody else said the same thing, Knight shared. Well, it was wrong. But if we go get Puffy in trouble behind that, Usher wouldn't be Usher. He'd be known as a guy by Puffy. And they didn't want that. They wanted money. This statement sheds light on a heartbreaking reality, how protecting a career and financial success sometimes takes precedence over exposing or wrongdoing, especially in an industry as complex and powerful as music. Despite the heavy allegations, Knight made it clear he holds no ill will toward Usher. He called the singer a good guy who deserved much better than what he went through. Knight also put the situation in a broader context, claiming that exploitation in the music industry is nothing new. It didn't start with Usher, Justin Bieber, or even Diddy. According to him, it extends all the way back to legends like Michael Jackson. Additionally, Suge Knight didn't hold back when he pointed fingers at Usher for allegedly enabling what happened to Justin Bieber. According to Knight, despite Usher's own difficult and troubling experiences under Diddy's mentorship, he somehow allowed the cycle to continue, and, in Knight's eyes, bears some responsibility for what Bieber went through. Usher, who had been guided by Diddy during his formative years as a young artist, eventually became a mentor himself and played a key role in introducing Justin Bieber to the music mogul. This connection seemed natural on the surface. After all, Usher's success was in many ways shaped by his relationship with Diddy. But Knight highlighted the darker side of that story, noting the irony and tragedy that someone who had suffered under Diddy's influence might inadvertently expose the next generation to the same environment. Knight's criticism dives into the complex, often uncomfortable realities of mentorship and power dynamics in the music industry. It raises difficult questions. How much agency do young stars really have when navigating these powerful relationships? Can someone who's been a victim also be an enabler, willingly or unwillingly, because they feel trapped by the very system that controlled them? Moreover, Knight's comments suggest that the cycle of control and exploitation might be more deeply embedded than many realize. It's not just about one person or one incident, but a pattern that repeats itself as new talent rises and older stars attempt to pass on what they've learned, sometimes without the ability or willingness to protect those coming up behind them. Now, Usher hasn't spoken much publicly about his time with Diddy in recent years, and he's stayed silent on the flood of charges and lawsuits currently swirling around the producer. But fans couldn't help but notice something unusual back in September 2024. Usher wiped his entire X, formerly Twitter, profile clean, deleting every single post. Naturally, this sudden digital vanishing act sparked a lot of speculation and raised some serious eyebrows. Usher later claimed his account had been hacked, but the timing and secrecy only fueled more rumors. Could it be that he's trying to distance himself from the growing storm around Diddy? Or maybe he's preparing for something bigger, like finally opening up about his experiences. As soon as the shocking news about Diddy's charges and the growing number of lawsuits started dominating headlines, things took a chaotic turn, not just in the media, but in the social media world as well. Right around the same time, fans and industry insiders noticed something that raised a lot of eyebrows. Usher completely wiped his entire social media presence clean, deleting every post, tweet, and photo from his ex, formerly Twitter account. The timing was suspicious enough to make people wonder if the two events were connected. This sudden, almost desperate digital disappearance sparked a wave of speculation. Many in the public began to believe that Usher's move wasn't just about a hacked account or a routine social media reset. Instead, it seemed like a deliberate effort to erase any trace of his past relationship with Diddy. In the midst of the growing scandal surrounding Diddy, people wondered if Usher was trying to create distance, to quietly sever all visible ties and connections. Why? Because in a situation this explosive, being linked, even tangentially, to someone facing such serious and disturbing allegations can be dangerous for your reputation. The fear on Usher's part might be that if people saw photos or posts showing him close to Diddy, they could mistakenly assume he was involved voluntarily, or worse, complicit in the alleged activities. By wiping his account, Usher could be trying to protect himself from public scrutiny or unwanted association as the legal battles continue to unfold. It's also possible that this was a strategic move, a way to avoid further questions and speculation while the storm rages on. When you're a public figure, every online post is a piece of your history. And in situations like this, sometimes silence and erasure feel like the safest option. Beyond the public speculation, insiders whisper that the pressure on Usher must be immense. He's a respected artist with a career spanning decades, and now he finds himself caught in the crossfire of one of the biggest scandals in the music industry. Removing all digital traces of his past with Diddy might be his way of maintaining control over his narrative until he's ready or forced to speak out. With the trial ongoing and new revelations dropping regularly, all eyes remain glued to Usher. Will he break his silence? Will he share his side of the story in a memoir or interview? Or will he continue to keep things under wraps, letting the legal process unfold without adding fuel to the fire? For now, the social media blackout remains one of the many mysterious threads in this complicated saga, an undeniable sign that the fallout from Diddy's scandal is far-reaching, touching even those who once seemed untouchable. There's been talk that Usher might write a memoir or some kind of tell-all book about his early years and the darker side of the industry, including what he saw while living with Diddy. He's hinted at this before, saying he wants to save some of that for my book one day. But it's also clear that he's been hesitant, maybe even scared. After all, history shows that those who have spoken out about Diddy haven't always had an easy time. So, while the silence has been deafening, there's a chance Usher is quietly gathering his story, wrestling with how much to reveal and when. Fans and insiders alike are waiting, hoping he'll finally shed light on what really happened during those formative years. Because if anyone can tell the full story, it's him. So, what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you liked this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.